What's up YouTube, this is Fate coming to you today with a ban list reaction video for the next format. For my lack of videos lately, I was more kind of waiting to see what this list would do, plus with the holidays and all. So as far as deck profiles go for at least the rest of the year until January 1st, don't expect too many of them. I will be posting some fun videos later on, but once the next list hits, I'm definitely going to be back on the deck profile bandwagon, and ooh, it's going to be a fun list, I can tell already. So without further ado, let's get down to the nitty gritty of it. Let's see what is hit on the forbidden side, and it looks like we do have one brand new entry in super polymerization. Yeah. Honestly, I was a little surprised that this got hit, but at the same time, I was not really surprised. And my explanation of this is heroes are coming back. This is the way I'm not surprised about it. And I don't think two builds deserve that level of insane control, especially with the masked heroes that the hero core is going to get out of the new structure deck come January. That and the next set is going to provide the last two attribute super poly targets for Shaddolls, which means heroes would be able to control everything, Shaddolls would be able to control everything, and with that new dark masked hero that's coming out, that is a little too much control on the table for both builds. I'm not sure if heroes would top with that, but Shaddolls would definitely be able to control almost any build in the game with that, given the right scenario. Unless Cleaforts and Infernoids had something up their sleeve that I'm not aware of. Which, considering I've been doing mostly holiday shopping lately, I wouldn't be a bit surprised of that either. But anyways, Super Poly going going on the list as banned. Not too surprised. Does this hurt Shaddolls? Yes. Does it kill him? No. By a long shot, and we'll get to that part when we get to deeper in the list. Next we go to the limited side, and we do have one effect monster that made it to the limited side. Artifact Moral Talk. And I do have to say one thing, and this is mainly against the artifact users out there. Thank you for hitting this guy! Artifact Sanctuary ×3 facing this guy ×3 was getting on my nerve. And especially since it's a free special summon, no cost for the pop one. I mean, that combo, if it's only run once, you can endure it, but if you get hit by it 3 straight times, it eventually wears you down to the point where, why bother facing this combo 3 different times? It got on a lot of people's nerves, and Molotov was definitely one of those cards that needed to be hit. However, since they did not hit Sanctuary or any of the other artifacts, do not count this build out. There's still plenty of support with them. I do think there will be some splash to artifact builds out there somewhere. Just don't expect Molotov doing his normal shenanigans against you as much. Unfortunately, I do regret that I will still be facing him once, but for what he is, he's not too powerful to ban on the list, so I think this is a really good hit. Definitely one needed for a while. Next card on the list, and I think this is a pretty interesting one, Darkstrike Fighter. Now with the new errated effect, everybody did kind of see this coming, and Darkstrike Fighter's errated effect, I can't really say he's a bad card yet. I mean, he still has that charm once per turn, send a monster away to deal ×200. Unfortunately, the errated effect makes this effect slightly weaker than, say, Cannon Soldier in some scenarios, but a generic level 7 with a 2600 attack, that's still something that cannot be underestimated with most level 7 synchros in the game today. So, might it be bumped up to 2 on later lists? I would probably count on it. However, don't sleep on this guy. There are definitely going to be those lesser builds out there that are going to use Dark Strike Fighter, and that 2600 attack at the very least will be an opposing force. And if you don't have an answer to him after you deal that attack, then the next turn you will have that 200 times burn to worry about. So, not too overpowered, but at the same time, don't sleep on this guy in the lesser builds out there. Now the next card on the list, which definitely got people... One of the cards that got people looking at this list twice. Snatch Steal is coming back. For an equip card, honestly, I do understand why this got the go-aheads to be brought back over Brain Control. Mainly because of the whole Cleaforts thing starting this. A lot more people are using Spell Shattering Arrow, MST, Twister Tornadoes, and Dust Tornadoes, and those cards are rampant in most builds right now. So if most people would try to use the Snatch Steal right now, MST, does nothing, try again next time. Unlike Mind Control, where it just gets off the field and you can keep control of that monster until end of turn. Same thing with Brain Control. Snatch Steal, you actually have a quick defense against it in multiple facets. I do find this will improve synchro builds greatly, and just because of this card coming off the list, I'm sorry, I have to do this. They're legal. They're legal. They are all legal. I did not get very much sleep last night. Let's move on to the next card. But the next card's probably not going to make this any better. And probably the second thing that people found very interesting off this list. Honest is back at 2 for the beginning of the semi-limiteds. I was pretty surprised about this. I mean, Stellar Knights are still doing their thing. Light Swords are still doing their thing. I guess they're trying to make that push against Burning the Abyss / Shaddolls / Infernoids, giving better competitive cards against those builds. That would be my argument to it, but having 2 Honest on the table definitely puts a good deal of light attribute related decks back onto the table for a competitive play. I mean, even the light attribute deck versions of E-Heroes definitely rely on Honest for those quick hitter plays at times, so I definitely help. It's granted it's going to be an overpower sometimes for light attribute decks. Like the most common argument I see, BLS plus Honest equals GGs. But it might be good for the game just to have that power boost in all the other builds so they can compete up to the level of your Cleaforts, your Burning the Abyss, and your Shaddolls. And the soon-to-be Infernoids, Necklace, and the rest of those guys. So giving those builds a fighting chance right off the get-go, I like the move more than most people. Next card, Goyo Guardian. Definitely with the builds that are coming out, I was not a whole lot surprised when I saw a lot of reduced play of Goyo Guardian. I mean, the best build in the format that would make good use of him would be Shaddolls. But even in those circumstances, people are going into Armades, Arcanite Magician, and I know a few people that are going into Tempest Magician over Gaga Cowboy in those builds, and Goyo Guardian, just to provide that last burn for game. Goyo Guardian is still a big power threat card, just not as much as it used to be before. Like that old combo with, I don't know, somebody used a bunch of Lunas and a bunch of Plague Spurs on me when these guys first came out and zapped out 3 Goyle Guardians on me. I don't expect to see that overpower anymore. It's definitely gotten tame, but again, can't really get him off the list yet because level 6, 2800 attack, you do the math, I'm not facing that 3 times. 2 times, maybe. 3 times, forget it. Next card on the list. Dark Hole is now semi-limited up to 2. And this is another one that I wasn't a whole lot surprised about. Ever since Regeki came back, Dark Hole plays have been dropped to a minimum. There are so few builds that Dark Hole really works, and especially with Shaddoll's second effect, Burning Abyss second, we've all been all that blah blah blah. Dark Hole's presence has lost its grip on control-wise on the game. There are very few things that this card can do now that doesn't help your opponent. I mean, it's still going to be good for clearing out the boss monsters of the field, but it just doesn't have the presence anymore. So that going up to 2, not a bit surprised. Now we go to the cards that are no longer on the list. Blackwing Gale the Whirlwind. Let's start off with a popular build. And the only thing that needs to be said is Blackwings. You now have every card in your arsenal off the ban list table. I know somebody's going to find a really good strategy for you out there, but if your last remaining boss card is now off the table, this is your last shot to make it competitive, unless those newer Blackwing cards are going to impact the game that much. For this foreseeable meta, and maybe even to the next format, this is your shot. If there's not as much of a strategy out there, Blackwings might be one of those builds that fade away despite its popularity. Unless you decide some random splice build that they would be able to operate, which they have been able to in the past in those kinds of circumstances. But as far as pure Blackwing plays go, this is your shot. Make it count. If it doesn't, nice knowing you. Next card, Mermill Abyssgundi. Basically all I need to say is Mermills have definitely dropped from the table. Abyssgundi definitely brings them back up to the speed play table. Mermills have a fighting shot now, but pretty much the same scenario as Blackwings. Some of your plays are off the table now. Make them count. Next card that is no longer banned, and I found this pretty interesting, Reborn Tengu. In the grand scheme of things, with Xyz plays more prominent than Synchro plays still, I see why the Reborn Tengu has also lost its grip on the game, especially when there's better recurring monsters, aka the hands, anything that has Yang Zame on the name, anything that's Pendulum, and anything that's zaps stuff back up to your hand, like, again, Burning Abyss and Shaddolls. I seem to be mentioning them a lot. But Reborn Tengu definitely provides that speed play power boost to synchro builds. Again, like Honest, I believe this is one of those cards that will increase the lower build's chances and help balance the game out power-wise a lot more. So as far as Reborn Tengu goes, I do believe this is the right time to bring it off the list. The spell that got brought off the list, Reasoning. Reasoning is... Reasoning? That should have been off the list a couple ban lists ago. Moving on to the last one. Transmigration Prophecy. I'd honestly forgotten this card had existed at some point. I think it was more prominent in Exodia builds. I don't know, a 1 card that returns 2 cards from the graveyard back to the deck isn't really speed savvy anymore, especially when cards feed off the graveyard, so that card for me is whatever. And with that, that is my reaction to the ban list. What does that say for the upcoming meta? It is going to be an interesting ride, especially with Snatch Steal being made prominent again in some of those builds. Will it be used widespread as some of those other cards? I do think it will be cut in some builds just to promote those speed plays, but I do think a little bit more balance has been brought to the meta, and the lower builds will get their shot this build, or this format. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Thank you for watching this video, and as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. And until next time.